In the 1970s, American car manufacturers were equipping muscle cars with the most powerful V8 engines, turning each one into a drag monster. In this video, we will discuss the fastest muscle cars of the 1970s in the 1/4 mile. Number 15, 1970, Chevrolet Camaro Z28. The second generation Camaro Z28 wasn't just a pony car, it was a proper street warrior. Under its long hood sat a 350 cubic inch LT1 V8, pushing out 360 horsepower at a screaming 6,000 RPM. Matched with a Muncie 4-speed manual transmission, the Z28 was built for enthusiasts who wanted a car that handled as well as it accelerated. With a 14.2-second quarter-mile time, the Z28 wasn't the fastest muscle car on the block, but it offered a perfect balance of power, handling, and style. Its aggressive stance, split bumper design, and racing pedigree made it a fan favorite. Today, it's a highly collectible classic, representing the pinnacle of Chevy's muscle car engineering in 1970. Number 14, 1970, Oldsmobile 442W 3455. Don't let the luxury styling fool you. The Oldsmobile 442W30 was a street brawler in disguise. Beneath its elegant exterior sat a monstrous 455 cubic inch V8, pumping out 370 horsepower and a brutal 500 pound-feet of torque. This torque-heavy monster made it a serious threat in drag races, launching off the line with ferocious acceleration. Equipped with a performance-tuned intake manifold, special camshaft, and lightweight components, the W30 package transformed the 442 into a true sleeper. Despite its size and comfort, this Oldsmobile blasted through the quarter mile in just 13.89 seconds, proving that raw displacement could go toe-to-toe with high-revving small blocks. Number 13, 1970, Plymouth GTX 426 Hemi. If you saw a 1970 Plymouth GTX in your rearview mirror, you knew trouble was coming. This Mopar beast was built around one of the most legendary engines in history, the 426 Hemi FR8. Producing 425 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque, this machine was a force to be reckoned with on the drag strip. The GTX wasn't just about brute power, it came with heavy-duty suspension, a functional hood scoop, and a tuned exhaust system, giving it both speed and an unmistakable roar. With a 13.85-second quarter-mile time, this was Plymouth's executive muscle car, proving that a car could be both luxurious and brutally fast. Number 12, 1970 Dodge Super Bee 446 pack. Dodge wasn't about to let Plymouth have all the fun. The 1970 Dodge Super Bee 446 pack was designed to be an affordable street racer that packed serious power. At its heart was the 440 cubic inch V8, topped with 3 Holley 2-barrel carburetors, hence the name 6-pack. This setup unleashed 390 horsepower, giving it blistering straight-line speed. What set the Super Bee apart was its no-nonsense attitude. With a lightweight body, minimal frills, and a focus on raw performance, it could rip through the quarter mile in just 13.80 seconds. It was a true bang-for-your-buck muscle car, delivering race-ready performance at a price lower than its Hemi-powered rivals. Number 11, 1970, Ford Torino Cobra 429 Super Cobra Jet. The Ford Torino Cobra 429 Super Cobra Jet was Ford's answer to the muscle car horsepower wars. Beneath its long hood was a 429 cubic inch V8, tuned to produce 375 horsepower and 450 pound-feet of torque. However, Ford underrated its power, and real-world figures suggest it made well over 400 horsepower. What made the SCJ version special was its drag pack option, which included an aggressive camshaft, an oil cooler, and a 4.3-to-1 rear axle ratio. These tweaks transformed the Torino into a quarter-mile beast, running 13.63 seconds down the strip. While often overshadowed by the Mustang, the Torino Cobra SCJ was one of the most underrated drag cars of its time. Number 10, 1971 Dodge Charger Super Bee Hemi. The Dodge Charger Super Bee HEMI was a prime example of Mopar's no-compromise approach to power. Stuffed under the hood was the legendary 426 HEMI V8, churning out 425 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque. This engine was built for high-speed domination, featuring forged internals, a race-ready camshaft, and dual 4-barrel carburetors. Despite being a larger and heavier muscle car, the Super B's Hemi power ensured that it could rip down the quarter mile in just 13.54 seconds. It was Dodge's budget-friendly performance option, offering race car power at a price that undercut its competitors. With its bold styling, aggressive stance, and unmistakable presence, the Super B left a lasting legacy in the world of muscle cars. Number 9. 1970 Pontiac GTO 455HO, nicknamed the Judge. The 1970 Pontiac GTO 455HO was one of the most brutal street machines of its time. Its heart was a 455 cubic inch high output V8, cranking out 360 horsepower and a staggering 500 pound-feet of torque. Unlike some of its high-revving competitors, the GTO relied on massive torque and instant throttle response to launch down the drag strip. With a quarter-mile time of 13.53 seconds, the 455HO was a true sleeper, packing insane power in a clean, aggressive body. While the 1970 model year marked the peak of the GTO's performance, rising insurance costs and emissions regulations would soon spell trouble for Pontiac's muscle car dominance. Number 8. 1971 Mustang Mach 1429 SCJ. The 1971 Mustang Mach 1 was Ford's way of proving that the Mustang could still be a serious performance machine. This wasn't just any Mustang, it came equipped with the monstrous 429 Super Cobra Jet SCJ V8, making 375 horsepower and 450 pound-feet of torque. What set the Mach 1 SCJ apart was its aggressive gearing, an engine oil cooler, and a heavy-duty suspension setup. These upgrades allowed it to charge through the quarter mile in just 13.40 seconds, making it one of the quickest Mustangs of its era. Despite its size, the Mach 1 remained a formidable drag strip competitor, cementing its status as one of the most iconic Mustangs of the 1970s. Number 7. 1970 Buick GS Stage 1455. Buick wasn't known for making muscle cars, but when they did, they made sure to shock the competition. The 1970 Buick GS Stage 1455 was a luxury coupe that could embarrass some of the most well-known muscle cars of its time. Under the hood was a 455 cubic inch V8, producing an underrated 360 horsepower and an insane 510 pound-feet of torque. More torque than a Hemi. Despite its sleeper looks and plush interior, the GS Stage 1 was an absolute monster at the drag strip, managing a quarter-mile time of just 13.38 seconds. This was Buick's way of saying, "Don't underestimate us." Today, it's one of the most underrated yet brutally powerful muscle cars of the golden era. Number 6. 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner 426 Hemi. The 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner was the ultimate bang-for-your-buck muscle car, offering massive performance without unnecessary luxury. And if you checked the right box on the order form, you could get it with the legendary 426 Hemi Phi 8, delivering 425 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque. What made the Roadrunner Hemi special was its lightweight, no-nonsense design. It wasn't packed with fancy features. It was built to do one thing: go fast. With a quarter-mile time of 13.34 seconds, it could outrun more expensive muscle cars, proving that Plymouth knew how to make a true street racing machine. Number 5. 1971 Ford Torino Cobra 429 SCJ. The 1971 Ford Torino Cobra 429 SCJ was a brutal street machine, built to dominate drag strips. At its heart was the 429 Super Cobra Jet SCJ V8, producing 375 horsepower and a massive 450 pound-feet of torque. This engine wasn't just about raw power. It came with 4-bolt mains, forged internals, an upgraded camshaft, and a functional ram air intake, making it one of Ford's most serious performance engines. Paired with the drag pack option, which included a 4.11 rear axle ratio and an engine oil cooler, the Torino Cobra launched like a rocket, running the quarter mile in just 13.30 seconds. This was Ford's final stand against rising insurance rates and emissions regulations, making the 71 Torino Cobra one of the last truly wild muscle cars of its era. Number 4. 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS4 54 LS6. Chevrolet took muscle car performance to another level with the 1970 Chevelle SS4 54 LS6. At its core was the 454 cubic inch LS6 V8, rated at 450 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque, the highest factory horsepower rating of any muscle car in 1970. What made the LS6 Chevelle special was its race-ready components. A high-lift solid camshaft, 11.25 to 1 compression, and a Holley 4-barrel carburetor meant it could sprint through the quarter mile in just 13.12 seconds. This car was Chevrolet's ultimate street weapon, feared by rivals and revered by enthusiasts. Number 3. 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle LS8. Often overshadowed by its LS6 counterpart, the 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle LS8 was another monster of the muscle car world. While official records on the LS8 are scarce, reports suggest it was a limited production version of the LS6, possibly with slight factory tweaks to its cam profile and tuning. Despite its under-the-radar reputation, the LS8 was just as quick, clocking a 13.12 second quarter mile, proving that Chevrolet had mastered the art of big block brutality. Today, the LS8 remains one of the most enigmatic yet brutally fast muscle cars of the 1970s. Number 2. 1970 Plymouth Cuda 426 Hemi. The 1970 Plymouth Cuda 426 HEMI was a legend born for speed. Plymouth stuffed the 426 HEMI V8 under the hood, unleashing 425 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque, paired with heavy-duty internals and a race-tuned suspension. This wasn't just a muscle car, it was a full-fledged drag racing monster. The Cuda's lightweight design and near-perfect weight distribution helped it blast down the quarter mile in just 13.10 seconds. With its sinister looks, shaker hood, and unmistakable presence, the Hemi Cuda is one of the most revered muscle cars of all time. Number 1. 1970 Ford Mustang Boss 429. Topping the list is the 1970 Ford Mustang Boss 429, a car so extreme that it was more of a NASCAR-ready machine than a street car. At its core was the 429 Boss Vice 8, a semi-hemispherical high-performance powerhouse rated at 375 horsepower, though real-world numbers were closer to 500 horsepower. What made the Boss 429 special was its engineering precision. It had aluminum cylinder heads, a high-revving solid lifter camshaft, and a free-flowing intake manifold, allowing it to push past 7,000 RPM with ease. The result? A mind-blowing 12.30 second quarter-mile time, making it the quickest production muscle car of the 1970s. The Boss 429 remains one of the rarest and most valuable Mustangs ever built, a true masterpiece of muscle car history.